into the day. Let's see what Nigerian is waking up to. The papers are out and the headlines are bold, and also the stories are ready to speak. Good morning, Ibadan. Good morning, Nigeria. You're tuning into Newspaper Review on JDN Radio 101.5 FM, broadcasting for all. I am Abiodun Samson, bringing you the major headlines making the front pages this Wednesday, the 26th of August, 2026. And here with me on the stand, I have the Nigerian Tribune, I have the Punch, I have the Nation, and also Daily Post are here with me. So if you are just tuning in right now, stay with me and let's turn the pages and see what is making the news today. And I will be starting with the Nigerian Tribune this morning with this headline that says 2027 Atiku to boycott debate unless Tinubu joins. And this is coming from ADC with this rider challenges presidency to debate on petrol subsidy removal. And that is on page 22 of the Nigerian Tribune for this morning. And moving forward, I have this headline that says federal government begins repairs as ministers visit Oye-Ekiti, Ilupeju Kaba Road. With this rider, Bini Asaba Expressway, motorists resort to forest route. And also I have this Umayi blames concessionaire. And still on the Nigerian Tribune, Nigerian ranks 56 among the world poorest countries by GDP. And that is coming from the Global Finance magazine. And still on the Nigerian Tribune, 43 fear killed, several abducted as terrorists lay siege to 5 Niger communities. And moving forward from there, we'll be moving to the next dailies, which is the Nation. And I have this headline that says confusion rocks articles for subsidy return campaign. NFIU public funds, firms used for money laundering. NDIC warns bank against shielding offenders and insider abuse. Tinubu urges prayers against insecurity as Muslim mark Eid Malud. IG, Nigerian security crisis, now interconnected network. And moving from there to the Punch newspaper, 19 oil block license to expire this year. Still on the Punch, Trump moves to revoke nearly 200,000 asylum seekers' visas. Dolly Parton, U.S. lower flags for 1 week. Governor spent 502 billion naira on travels, offices. Tinubu orders reconstructions of Bini bypass and others. States IGR soars 34% to 2.43 trillion naira despite economic hardship. Police undercover Ogun baby factory rescue pregnant women and children. Drug law asset must be seized, says Mawa. And also on the Punch newspaper, Canada returnee bags 11-year jail over cannabis trade. And moving forward to the Guardian newspaper for this morning, federal government hasting police reform to douse self-help plots in communities. South Africa, 65 Nigerians to return today by private sponsorship. NDLEA harps on assets for future to discourage crime. Obi Atiku challenge Tinubu on proxy campaigns and presidential debates. Tinubu Jonathan Diri Dixon about unites on merit, integrity in public service. And those are the headlines that are making way for this morning on the newspaper review. just tuning in, it's still the newspaper review on JDN Radio 101.5 FM, and I will be starting with the story from the headline from The Nation for this morning, the 26th of August 2026, with this headline that says Confusion rocks articles for subsidy return campaign. Article in a statement by eBay says it would restore subsidy if elected president in 2027 and phase it out later. And in another statement by Shaib, Atiku said there was no going back on reversal for subsidy removal, stressing that it will support domestic refinery and production with measurable performance-based exit condition built in from day one. On assumption of office, he said on May 29, 2023, President Bola Tinubu embarked on economic reform that altered fuel subsidy and unified the multiple exchange rate window into a single market-determined rate. He further said between June 2023 and December 2025, 15.8 trillion naira was freed up and accrued to the Federation account as a result of stopping subsidy payments. According to the Minister of Finance, Taiwo Oyewole, the Coordinating Minister of Economy explained that 5.4 trillion naira was shared by the federal government, while state and local government got 10.4 trillion naira. Atiku, who ran for president in 2019 and 2023 on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has promised to remove subsidy if elected like President Tinubu and Peter Obi, who was the candidate of the Labour Party. However, he repudiated his earlier position last week. And this story continues on The Nations for this morning. And moving forward from there, still on The Nations for this morning, NFIU, public funds, farm firms used for money laundering. I'm still on the Punch newspaper if you're just tuning in. And these are the story from the headline I just read, which is NFIU, public funds, farm firms used for money laundering. Public funds at the state and local government level, procurement process, agricultural business, construction companies, restaurants, and other legitimate business are being exposed to different forms of financial crime. The Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, NFIU, has said. The NFIU said it has identified serious vulnerabilities in Nigerian public financial system, businesses, and cross-border transactions. The discoveries are contained in the NFIU's 2025 annual report, which examine emerging risks and changing methods used to move, conceal, and disguise proceeds of crime. The unit said its analysis shows an increasingly complex financial crime environment in which traditional crime methods are combining with cross-border transactions and weaknesses in financial system. The NFIU is responsible for receiving and analyzing financial disclosure and passing intelligence to law enforcement, regulatory, and other competent authorities for further actions. And the story continues on The Nations for this morning. If you're just tuning in, it's still the newspaper review on your dial 101.5 FM. And I'm moving forward to the Punch newspaper with this headline, 19 oil block licenses to expire this year. No fewer than 19 oil licenses in Nigerian upstream sectors have stated expiring dates falling within 2026. According to the Nigerian Upstream Concession Situation Report of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the report released in August 2026 covers petroleum exploration and production concessions across Nigerian upstream oil and gas industry, including petrol prospecting licenses and oil prospecting licenses. It also shows that 3 oil licenses had expired date in 2025, while several other concessions are scheduled to expire in 2027. The license comprises of 12 petroleum prospecting licenses with 7 oil prospecting licenses, whose stated tenure dates fall within 2026. The development comes as the federal government seeks to attract fresh investment into the upstream sectors, raise crude oil productions, and deepens exploration activities while targeting idle assets. The PPL's list with 2026 expiry date include the PPL 220 held by the Navente Exploration and Production Limited, which is due to expire in October 16, 2026. And the list goes on the Punch newspaper for this morning. And still on the Punch newspaper for this morning, I have this headline that says Trump moves to revoke nearly 200,000 asylum seekers' visas. The administration of United States President Donald Trump has said that it had plans to revoke the non-immigrant visas of foreigners who have applied for or are currently seeking asylum in the country, with up to 200,000 businesses and tourism visas holders reportedly affected. The proposed move, announced by the U.S. State Department is the latest in a sweeping immigration crackdown by the Trump administration. According to the Associated Press, a State Department spokesperson says the department was coordinating with the Department of Homeland Security to identify and revoke the non-immigrant visas of foreigners who have come to the United States claiming to be short-term visitors but then file for asylum to stay there permanently, the spokesperson said. The department does not disclose the number of visas expected to be revoked. However, the Associated Press reported that up to 200,000 foreigners whose businesses and tourism visas were issued between 2016 and 2026 could be affected, citing State Department documents and 2 U.S. officials. According to the report, the State Department would revoke B1 and B2 visas held by individuals who have sought or are currently seeking asylum. And the story continues on the Punch newspaper for this morning. I'm still on the same vein of the last story I read, and I'm still on the Punch newspaper with this headline that says governor spent 502 billion naira on travel offices. 33 state governments spent at least 512.10 billion naira on government house, governors' offices, and travel and transport in the first 6 months of 2026, an amount about 4,713 times higher than the combined 6-month salary of Nigerians' 36 governors. An analysis of state budget implementation report had shown on Monday. The analysis shows that while a governor's stated monthly salary is 503,000 translate to 3.01 million naira over 6 months, the combined 6-month salary of all 36 governors would amount to just 108.65 million naira. Against this, the available record shows that 420.01 billion naira was identified under government house, governors' offices, and related executive administration expenditure, while another 92.09 billion naira was spent on the travel and transportation budget heads. The combined amounts to 512.10 billion naira. The 6-month salary of all 36 governors therefore represented only 0.02% of the identified expenditure on executive offices and travel. And this story continues on the Punch newspaper for this morning. And still moving on from there, I have this headline that says Tinubu orders reconstructions of Bini bypass orders. President Bola Tinubu has ordered the redesign of total reconstructions of Bini-Agbo-Asaba Road and other major federal highways across Edo State and adjoining corridors as the federal government moves to tackle worsening road conditions that have disrupted transportation, damaged vehicles, and increased the cost of doing business nationwide. The directive came on Tuesday as the Minister of Works, David Umahi, inspected the troubled Bini Agbo-Asaba Road in Edo State, while the Minister of State for Works, Bello Goroyo, visited the Ifaki-Oye Kaba and Efon Iwaraji Road in Ekiti State, where motorists and residents have endured prolonged delay and hardship. Umahi apologized to commuters and took responsibility for the condition of the Bini Asaba Road, while condemning the concessionaire handling its reconstruction. He ordered steps towards the total reconstruction of the highway, stressing that palliative works would not be sufficient to resolve the problem. And the story continues on the Punch newspaper for this morning. It's still the news overview on JDN Radio 101.5 FM. And as you know that you can be part of the conversation this morning, and you can do that by either dropping your comment on Facebook or YouTube or JDN Radio 101.5 FM. And you can call into the studio line on 07048 001015 and 08022102163. 07048 001015 and 08022102163. And you can drop your comment and it will be read out. So moving forward to the Guardian newspaper with this headline that says, federal government hasting police reform to douse self-help lot in communities. Nigerian worsening security challenges are putting fresh pressure on the country's policing system. This came as the federal government yesterday announced the appointment of Professor Emmanuel Olukemi Rotimi of Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, to the Policy Advisory Committee of the Presidential Working Group on the National Policing Bill. Insecurity in part of the countries has continued to disrupt the lives of residents, with communities facing attacks by bandits, kidnappers, and other armed groups. While President Bola Tinubu has ordered the Armed Forces, Nigerian Police Force, Department of State Service, DSS, and other security and intelligence agency to intensify effort to rescue victims of the Niger Marks adoptions, there are concerns about the vulnerability of many other communities. Last week, Friday, the attackers stormed Kempaya Mosque in the Kaya district of the Bogu local government area at around 2 p.m. after first attacking Gidanzana and Kepenya village. Police spokesperson Wasi Wabiodu said Bogun Council Chairman Abdullahi Muhammad Nasir said at least 60 people were abducted and an unspecified number of people sustained gunshot injuries while attempting to escape. He said the situation has also heightened concerns over the ability of residents to protect themselves as armed attack persists. And the story continues on the Guardian newspaper for this morning. And still on the Guardian newspaper, I have the story that says South Africa, 65 Nigerians to return today by private sponsorship. Another batch of 65 Nigerians is expected to return home from South Africa today, sponsored by private individual. The repatriation comes amid continued concerns over xenophobic attack and the safety of foreign nationals in the country. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs disclosed this in a notification issued yesterday by the outgoing spokesperson, Kimebia Ebenefa. According to the ministry, the returnees will depart Oliver Tambo International Airport, Johannesburg, At 3:30 p.m. local time abroad, a South African Airways flight. They are expected to arrive at the Muritala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, at 8:45 p.m. the same day. The latest return comes after the federal government concluded a voluntary evacuation program through which 1,490 Nigerians were repatriated from South Africa following a wave of xenophobic attack and anti-immigrant tensions. And the story continues on the Guardian newspaper for this morning. And moving now to Facebook to check one of our comments and also to let you see the reactions of people. And this is coming from Dr. Mrs. Olibara. She said the catalyst that skyrocket extreme hardship is President Tinubu's unilateral removal of fuel subsidy, which is the only dividend of democracy. And she further said we are benefiting from the government. With it, every other thing got worse. Nigerian demands that petrol must not exceed 500 naira a liter. That's minus spendings by the legislature, and indeed cost of governance be reduced by at least 60% and Senate be scrapped. And she further says this remains our resolves and demand. So that is what actually sparked our reaction. I think that was the first story that I read this morning from from the Nation this morning about the campaign of one of the presidential governors. And also we have Adebayo Timileyin is joining us also on Facebook. And it's still the newspaper review on JDN Radio 101.5 FM. And we'll be calling it a wrap this morning on the newspaper review on JDN Radio 101.5 FM. And I know you might be thinking that you have something to say. I want some of the headlines have actually sparked a reaction, and I want you to know that you don't have to worry, as the newspaper review will come in Yoruba language translation in the next few minutes, and that will be on our Foniruin. So do not take it away from this frequency 101.5 FM JDN Radio. I remain Abiodun Samson, and do not forget that the newspaper review continues tomorrow, same time, 7:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. on JDN Radio 101.5 FM, the only radio station that is broadcasting for all.
You are listening to JDN 101.5 FM. Broadcasting for all.
Ẹ má gbé kúrò, ẹ má yí kúrò, ẹ má gbé kúrò.